Hello and welcome to part 42 of this video series. In this video, we will learn exception handling. When executing C# code, different errors can occur. Coding errors made by programmer, error due to wrong input, or other unforeseeable things. When an error occurs, C# will normally stop and generate an error message. The technical term for this is C# will throw an exception. There can be two type of errors. One is compile time error that we will see at the build time when you try to build the application, and if there are any errors, C# compiler will not build the application and it will throw the error at that time. And there could be runtime errors which we cannot see at the build time, but when we run the application at that time, errors will come up. Let's go to Visual Studio and understand this with some example. Okay, I have opened up my Visual Studio. Now first understand what are compile time errors. Compile time errors are basically that compiler can catch and tell us while writing the code itself. Suppose I am declaring an integer a, and if I try to store integer a to some string in it, compiler will give us the error. So these type of errors are called compile time errors. There can be multiple reasons for compile time error. One is if you are providing the incorrect data type. Second example can be if we have a method. So I have a method m, and let's say while invoking this method, I am not providing the proper inputs. I am providing some invalid inputs. I have provided string as my input, but if you see, the method is not expecting any string. This time we will get the compile time error. You can read here, no overload for method m takes one argument. So these type of errors are known as compile time error. Now let's see what are runtime error. Let's suppose you are asking a user to input some number. Let's say, please provide your age. Okay. So the assumption is user will provide some valid number that we can cast to a number variable. Let's say integer n equal to console.readline. And we all know when we use the console.readline, it will give us the string. So we need to pass the string to a number. For that, we can use int.parse method. This will take the string which is provided by the user and it will convert it to the integer type. Now let's try to print the age which we have received with the message age is, and we can use our n variable. Now let's run the program. You can see we are getting the message, please provide your age. Let's say user is providing age as 18. You can see program is running successfully and we are getting age is 18 without any issues. But let's say user don't provide any valid input here. What if user provides ABC here, which is not a proper integer? So of course, when we try to parse this string to a number, the parse operation will fail and we will get the exception. If I press enter here, you will notice we are getting the exception here. Input string was not in a correct format. So these type of errors are known as runtime errors or exceptions. Let's go back to slides again. Okay. In C# to handle these kind of errors, what we can do, we can use try-catch blocks. Using try-catch block, we can avoid our application to crash. If you notice here, in this example, our application has crashed and it has stopped running at line number 12 because we faced the error at line number 12. Let's try to run the application in run mode also. If I press Ctrl F5, now our application is in run mode. It is not in debug mode. Now if I send ABC string here, you will notice we are getting the error message on the console. Unhandled exception. system.format exception. So this is the type of exception which we are receiving, and it has the error message input string was not a correct format. All right. And it is giving some information about the exception, where the exception has occurred. If you read here, it is saying line number 12 in demo.cs class. If you see line number 12, at this line only, we are trying to pass that string to an integer. So using this information will actually help the developers to debug the code and resolve the issues. Okay, let's suppose we had some other piece of code here. We are printing the message. Thanks for using this application. Now run the program and let's give some invalid input now. Okay, let's first try to give some valid input. Let's say 22. I am providing a valid number, and if I hit enter, this time I am getting age is 22, and I'm also getting the message thanks for using the application. Now let's say if I don't give the valid input, I am giving XYZ. Okay, you can see we are getting the error message again. The program has crashed and we are not executing the line number 16 because the program has crashed at line number 12. So whatever is there after that uh, line will not get executed. This is because we have not handled the exception properly. So in order to execute the program and to handle the exception which we are getting at the runtime, what we can do, we can use try and catch block. Let me show you how we can use try and catch block in this case. We know we might get exception at this line. So what we can do, we can encapsulate this piece of code within our try block. Let's declare this variable outside the try block. Okay. And if you notice, we are getting an error message here. It says expected catch or finally. So whenever we are writing try block, it is mandatory to provide either a catch block or a finally block. Let's for now we'll provide a catch block and we will understand what is the purpose of adding a catch block. So what we are doing, if at all we are getting any exception in this try block, that exception will be caught here using the catch block, and within this block we can handle that error message. Maybe we can show the error message to the user. Let's try to provide it here. CW e dot, we have the access to message property here, so we can print that error message. Along with that, we can also tell invalid input, please try again. So we can give a user-friendly error message so that user will know that they have not provided a proper input, so that they can run the application again and provide the input. And I have to initialize my local variable. Let's initialize it to 0 for now. Let's put a if block here so that we don't print out the age if it is 0. If n is not equal to 0. Okay. Now try to run the program now. Okay. Now if we give some invalid input, let's say X, and if we hit the enter, you will notice we are getting the error message input string was not in correct format. So this is the exception message that we are receiving from the line number 19. And after that, we are getting a user-friendly message, invalid input, please try again. And at the end, we are executing the code. Thanks for using this application. So this time, if you notice, the application has not crashed, and we have executed the application till the end line, like line number 25 was also executed. So guys, this is how you can use try and catch block to avoid our application to crash. and provide some meaningful error message to the user so that user will know what they have did wrong. Okay, I have added the finally block here. So what will happen if we don't get any exception? First, we will go to the try block, and from the try block, if there are no errors, we will not go into the catch block. We will directly go in the finally block. Okay, and after that, whatever code is there after the final block, that will get executed. And suppose if we receive any exception or an error message while running the application, that time first we will go to the try block, and then we will go to the catch block, and then we will go to the final block. So irrespective of if we receive the error or not, we will always go to the final block and execute the piece of code there. The final block can be very useful to release up the resources. Suppose you are opening up a database connection in your try block and you receive some database error. That time you can use your finally block to close the database connection so that we don't hold up to the database resources. And if I run the program now and I give some invalid age ABC, you will notice we are getting the message I am in the finally block. So finally block will always get executed. Now let's understand the purpose of throw keyword. Throw keyword can be used to throw custom exception. Whatever exception we have seen here, that was thrown by the .NET. So at the runtime, .NET will get the error and it will throw that error message there. But developers can write the code to throw the error message in some custom scenarios also. Let's say if the age is not above 18, we want to throw some exception. So what we want to do, if the age here is less than 18, what we want to do, we want to throw a new application exception, and I can give the error message here, age cannot be below 18. So instead of .NET throwing the exception, I am writing my code at line number 19 to throw the exception if age is not greater than or equal to 18. So I have used the throw keyword here and I am throwing a new application exception. Similarly, I can catch this exception in my catch block. Okay. So what I can do, I can change this exception to application exception. Okay. And this time I can change my message here, or let's remove the message from here. And let's add one more catch block. And this time I can give the exception. So what will happen in this case, if we receive any application exception, we will go to this catch block, and if we receive any other exception other than application exception, in that case we will hit our this particular catch block. Okay, let's run the application, and if I provide the age as 17, this time you can see we are getting the error message age cannot be below 18, and then we are going to the finally block, and after that we are printing the age and we are giving the message thank you for using this application. And let's suppose now if I give any invalid input ABC, and if you see we are getting the different error message because this time we went to this particular catch block and we are printing input string was not in correct format, and then we're executing the final block, and after that we are printing the message thank you for using this application. We will discuss the multiple catch block in details in our next video. For now, let's see what are the common standard exception that we have in our .NET. First one is the out of memory exception. As the name says, when the application is running and the memory in our system is not enough, that time this exception will be thrown. Out of memory exception. Second one is null reference exception. Basically, when we will try to access any object that is not initialized, that time we will receive the null reference exception. Invalid cast exception. If we are trying to cast some data to a different data type and that data is not valid, that time we will receive the invalid cast exception. Array type mismatch exception. If we are trying to store something in array that is not of correct data type, that time we will receive the array type mismatch exception. Index out of range exception. If you are trying to access an index of an array that is not available, that time we will receive the index out of range exception. For example, if we have an array of size 5 and we are trying to access an index 10, so the 10th index will not be available and we will throw index out of range exception. Arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception will occur when we are trying to do some arithmetic operation and some error occurs at that time. Divide by zero exception. As the name suggests, if you are trying to divide a number by zero, that time this particular exception will be thrown. Overflow exception will occur if you are trying to store a number that is not supported by the variable in which you are trying to store it. For example, you have a very big integer number that you are trying to store in int variable, but there is a range that a int variable can store. If you go beyond or below that, that time you will get the overflow exception. That's it for this video, guys. In the next video, we will learn about multiple catch blocks and how we can create custom exceptions. Thank you for watching.